Hi there and welcome to this session on cloud computing in organisations. In this session I'd like to spend some time just beginning by introducing you to what cloud computing is all about, and then spending a little time exploring the advantages that cloud computing brings to businesses. I then want to look at some of the cloud service providers and introduce you to three types of cloud: the public cloud, the private cloud and also hybrid clouds, before finishing off by looking at some of the issues that surround cloud services. So first of all, to begin with, cloud computing itself. Well, cloud computing is a computing environment in which software and storage are provided as an internet service and accessed with a web browser. So it's quite different to the way that organisations traditionally store their data in their own internal computer systems. This is actually data accessed via the web. Almost all organisations are actually using the cloud in some way. In fact, we as individuals use the cloud. If we've got an email account, perhaps on an iPhone or maybe on Google, then that email information is stored on the cloud. A lot of our pictures and photographs are no longer stored on a device that we own, but they're stored on a cloud account. Well, organisations are very much the same. Some of their essential infrastructure, like email, of course, is used by the cloud, but also a lot of organisations also use the cloud for data backup, disaster recovery, something called virtual desktops, where we don't actually own the software and have it installed on our desktop, but rather when we go to use a piece of software, it's actually accessed via the web. Big data analytics, of course, is another cloud computing application that a lot of organisations use. And of course, things like customer-facing web applications that allow organisations to interface with their customers and consumers and so on. So an introduction to cloud computing there, a little bit about just what cloud computing is. So some of the advantages to businesses of cloud computing could be considered. The first thing is that businesses can save on systems design, installation and maintenance. The very fact that you don't have to build your own IT systems or even go through a process of installing and maintaining your own systems is a great benefit to a business. It actually lets the business get on and do what that business is about, rather than becoming an IT company. One of the other advantages, of course, of cloud computing is the increased efficiency, security and scalability. Efficiency and security are helped by the fact that the business doesn't have to worry about making sure that all of the systems are updated with the latest version of software, that all the security patches are put in place and so on. This is done by the cloud service provider. And scalability is also important to a business, because it means as its data needs increase or it needs considerably more access to a particular software package, all of that can simply be done by contacting the service provider and changing the contract and the agreement to give more data access or more copies of a particular application license. The also advantage of cloud computing is that it reduces costs. It reduces costs of a new product or services when we launch them. It also reduces, of course, our IT staffing costs, because we don't become an IT company but rather a business that works on the products or services that we provide. And one of the other great advantages is, of course, that users can access their data and the cloud computer based systems from any internet connected device. And so we're no longer stuck at our desks in a particular office location. We can actually access all of our cloud based data wherever we are on any particular internet connected device. So as you can see, there are a number of advantages to cloud computing. So I mentioned in the previous slide a cloud service provider. Well, just what is a cloud service provider? They are a third-party company that provides what we call a cloud-based platform. Infrastructure, that's the technology itself, the servers and all the other computing power. The applications, those are the pieces of software that let us get our jobs done. Sometimes they're applications like Windows packages or Word or Excel or PowerPoint that we might use. Sometimes they're applications that you as a company have developed for your own needs. Sometimes they're ERP systems. All sorts of different software that a business requires can be provided by a cloud service provider. They also provide storage of data to an organisation, and all of this, of course, is for a fee which the user of the service pays. A service provider also owns and manages the infrastructure in terms of the servers, but also the technology that enables the user organisations to actually access the cloud. And what we find there is that there's much less of a demand for a particular company then to have its own IT equipment. All of the technology is looked after by our cloud service provider. You probably think that you've never heard of a cloud service provider before, any possible company that gives these sort of facilities and services. But when we start to look at some of the examples, you'll realise that some of them are very well-known household names. Amazon is one of them. We tend to look at Amazon as being a provider of online shopping and perhaps other streaming services, but actually a big part of Amazon's business is to be a web services company, allowing businesses to use its web services to carry out cloud computing activities for their businesses. Another company is Microsoft. Microsoft have got a cloud called Microsoft Azure, which some of you again who use desktop machines might have seen. And thirdly, we've also got Google Cloud as well. So Google is again a cloud computing services provider. So I hope that's explained a little bit just about what service providers are within cloud computing. So we've already determined that a cloud service provider is a third-party company that provides this cloud base, if you like. Well, there's three different sorts of clouds that are on offer from our service providers. The first one is a public cloud. A public cloud is a faster, cheaper and more agile approach to building and managing your own IT infrastructure. So as an organisation, a public cloud can hold data or provide services to many different organisations on the same cloud. And I guess we as individuals in using our email services sit on a public cloud where my email and your email and lots of other people's email is all held within a public cloud infrastructure. A second source of cloud computing facility is a private cloud. The private cloud environment allows, if you like, a single tenant, a single organisation to use one set of servers. Organisations often implement this due to concerns that their data will not be secure in a public cloud. The second type of private cloud is a service provider managed private cloud, where the cloud itself actually sits on the services of the service provider rather than the organisation's machines themselves. And then finally, the third type or sort of cloud is the hybrid cloud. This is of course composed of both private and public clouds integrated through networking. Organisations could typically use the public cloud to run applications which are less sensitive or require less security, and they could then use the private cloud to run critical applications which are perhaps more security sensitive and so on. So the hybrid cloud there is a mixture of both the public and the private cloud. We now turn our attention to looking at the types of cloud services. Well, cloud computing can be divided into three main types of services. These are infrastructure as a service, often referred to as IaaS, and this offers a technical infrastructure and removes the need for IT in the business. The second type of cloud service is something called platform as a service, PaaS, and this enables businesses to run their own applications, so their own software that they may have developed themselves. They also can use web applications which can also be easily created as well. So you can see why that might be attractive to some businesses. And then finally, the third type of cloud service is software as a service, referred to as SaaS. And this is about delivering software applications to the user. So this is where a business will allow people to run perhaps typical Word or Excel or other well-known software applications, but rather than having them installed on the machines within the business, they're actually accessed via the internet and the cloud, and it's called software as a service. So those are three types of cloud services that are available. So just to summarise our session on cloud computing, we've gone through and introduced the idea of just what cloud computing is. We've looked at some of the advantages to the business, and then we've looked at the different sorts of cloud service providers, public, private and hybrid, and we've seen where the different instances where those might be used. And then finally, we've finished off by looking at the different cloud services. And finally, thanks ever so much for watching. I hope the content discussed has been helpful to you and that you find it interesting going forward in your studies. Thank you very much.